Hello and welcome to this interview. My name is Sina Saidi, a third year business student at Capilano University. As a part of the Business and Society course, we are doing this interview, which is focused mainly around business ethics. I'm pleased to have David Kuch with me here today. David is one of the professors at Capilano University, and in all honesty, one of the most up to date people I know on the campus. Before we get started, could you please give us a background of yourself and your education for everyone listening?
Thanks, Sina. I appreciate that introduction and this opportunity. So yes, I'm David. Been an instructor at the School of Business at Capilano University for almost 8 years now. I have an MBA from the University of Alberta, otherwise known as U of A, and then also a Bachelor of Commerce with honors in marketing from York University as my undergrad. And then I have about 20 years or more now in terms of work experience, and that's within marketing, sales, and project management. Also, I've worked in entrepreneurship, so I've had a few businesses. Also working on two right now, actually. But that I won't be talking about that today. But yeah, my background includes working in industries such as telecom, technology, software, fitness, manufacturing, and then I just really love teaching and just really connecting, business theory to real world practice. So lately I've been doing a lot of whale projects. I think I'm at
Yeah.
almost 10 projects now. So just bringing real clients into the classroom and really connecting students with these real clients and not only doing projects, but sometimes even leading to part-time or even full-time work or internships. So I think that's where I get the most satisfaction is actually the real world experience.
Exactly. That's amazing.
And then, yeah, just for today, I know we're going to be focusing on something I worked on in the past, which actually was also an internship. So I work with My Tax. They're essentially a not-for-profit. They're an organization that helps give away grants for educational institutions where you can get matched with faculty as the supervisor, and you
Yeah.
have a client, and then you have a student. So I worked on a MyTax supported project with Hub Cycling. So this is another not-for-profit company or organization, quite large actually. So they're based in Vancouver, and we focused on their bike-friendly building consulting team. So
Right.
it's quite of an interesting project. This project really involved supervising one student. So it was a student-led market research to really help Hub strengthen their marketing and business development strategy in a way that supported sustainable transportation, but also real world community impact. And then in terms of ethics, so from an ethics perspective, this was really a good example of how like research ethics, workplace ethics, and then also stakeholder based business ethics kind of all come together as one and just one, I'd say, pretty large project.
Fabulous. And thanks for sharing all of that. So I have gathered a few questions for you, and I'm going to go through them in order. Very conversational. Feel free to, uh, you know,
Good.
stop me anytime. So, what would you say made the hub cycling project ethically interesting?
Yeah, so this was actually my first real like research project, so there's a lot of things that went into just getting this put together. So what really made it ethically interesting was that it really sat, I'd say, at the intersection of business, sustainability. There's that community impact piece, but the big one was for sure researching, a lot of people in that industry as well. So the project was not just about, say, marketing a service. It's really about helping Hub Cycling strengthen their bike-friendly building consulting. So it's essentially like a construction
Yeah.
department that they have, which a lot of people don't know about, just in a way to really support healthier communities, greener transportation, as that's a big topic right now, and then just really better real estate planning. Those are like the main pieces. And then it was really meant that these decisions had to consider more than profit or visibility. It had to really include stakeholders, so key stakeholders, public value,
Right.
and then also responsible research practice. So a lot of research did go into that.
No, for sure. Yeah, it absolutely takes a lot of effort for that as well. What would you say what does ethics mean in a research-based business project like this?
That's a good question. So I'd say to me, like ethics means doing the work in a way that's fair. I think the biggest one for me for sure is being transparent, respectful, but also responsible. So like in this specific project, it really just meant being honest about the purpose of the research, protecting participant information because there was a lot of participants that were interviewed, collecting data appropriately. Again, a lot of data collection, so not just primary research. We did that too, but secondary. But from the primary side, I'd say there's some sensitive data too that was collected there, and then just making recommendations that were really evidence based rather than just say exaggerating.
For
We
sure.
came up with. So a lot of facts were backed up. And then also recognizing that a marketing research project really affects real people, organizations, and especially for this project, the community. So it's just a big process that really kind of flowed. A lot of ethics went into it, and it's really about that process that matters just as much as say the outcome. I would say when it came to this project.
Absolutely. And you're part of the research ethics board as well. What would you say the also known as RAB? So what would you say uh, RAB played a role in this project?
Yeah, so RAB, I do sit on the board now, but interesting enough, before so when this project started, I didn't even know what it was. So it was new to me at the time. But this is a great board, and it's great that we have this at Capilano. So you have a lot of key people that sit on this board, and they essentially make sure that the research that's being done is ethical, especially when it involves, human participants and collecting data. So I sit on the board now. I've now extended for another 2 years. So I was on the board for 2 years. And then I'm going to do another two. So it's going to be
Congrats.
upwards of 4 years. Probably continue to do it. But in terms of the RAB for this project, so to answer your question, it was important because it involved a lot of human participants that we had to interview. We did small focus groups, but a lot of surveys as well. So anytime you're gathering information from people in like a structured research setting, there's definitely a lot of ethical responsibilities, especially when it comes to informed consent, confidentiality. A big one I would say is just how you're handling the data, and then of course minimizing any risks. So a lot of risk
Sure.
management went into it as well. And then I'd say the RB really helps ensure that these standards are in place, to make sure that everyone's following it, before you actually do the research. So there was a
Absolutely.
big draft I had to put together. Obviously, this had to get approved first, and I had people, 6 people actually with PhDs that all had to approve the research methodology. The client had to approve it, and then of course
Yeah.
my tax also people with PhD, so heavy on research side, also had to approve everything we put together. So just in simple terms, R&B though, RB, so they really help protect participants and really help strengthen the integrity, I'd say, of the whole research process.
For
So
sure.
it's
And
played a pivotal role,
absolutely.
it
And that
usually
all
does.
ties to my next question, which is what would you say the ethical issues can come up when interviewing participants? Like what an example could be from that?
Yeah, so for this project, I'd say there's a few big ones that come up typically. It's just getting informed consent. So people need to know why they're actually being interviewed
Yeah.
and then how their input's going to be used. So just being really transparent, it comes back, it could come back at you, right? So you have to make sure you're very
Absolutely.
transparent why you're actually doing this interview and how you're going to use the research. So I'd say second, though, confidentiality. So participants definitely may share opinions, sometimes about their own organizations or others or competition or even the industry. So you have to protect that information. And then I'd say another one is just the power dynamics. So participants should never feel pressured to participate. So it should be fully voluntary because you don't want to create any bias or make it feel like it's pushed in a certain way that would skew your research. I guess there's one more because I was just really thinking about this
Yeah.
integrity. So you really
It's
need
a
to
big one.
represent, what the participants actually said. You can't twist it or try to manipulate it to fit a certain narrative, if you see what I mean. You can't take
Absolutely.
pieces out. You actually have to use the raw data and again try to reduce bias and really keep it in the integrity piece there, because that's really the whole thing that's going to keep it all together and really build trust on terms of the research that you're doing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work that goes into it that
For
people
sure.
don't realize. So, how do business ethic and workplace ethics connect in a project like this?
Yeah, so I'd say it's another good question. Yeah, business ethics looks really at, say, like the broader decisions of an organization, and say also the impact on stakeholders. Where workplace ethics really, it's more about like how people behave day to day, or more like inside the project. So this is more like fairness, I'd say professionalism, respect,
Yeah,
accountability, confidentiality, and then of course following like your day-to-day policies or whatever policies that you have at the workplace. So in this project, business ethics showed up a lot, I'd say, especially in the recommendations. And then also with, I'd say workplace ethics really showed up how the student researcher was actually hired, but also I was supervising that student researchers. So I had to do up to 50%, and so did the client. So we both kind of shared that responsibility.
right.
So a lot of ethics goes into that. And then, of course, they were paid. So that was another thing. And then, of course, supported. So I'd say there's quite a bit going on in terms of workplace ethics as well.
For sure. And would you say they were ethical responsibilities in hiring the student researcher?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say hiring a student researcher is, it's not just like an administrative step that you're taking. It's also an ethical responsibility. If you really think about this whole process, you want a fair hiring process. So I did have to,
Yeah.
you have to create a job posting, send that out, interview students, and obviously let them know the opening and close date. Have the appropriate interview questions. Again, making sure it's not skewed a certain way. And then again, I think really the important thing here is just being clear around expectations, and then doing the proper. I think the big one always for me was onboarding. So I put a lot into that with this student. So
Yeah.
that first 2, 3 weeks was definitely a lot of, I don't want to use the word, I guess I'm going to say it, but hand holding, but
Yeah.
definitely doing a lot of training and coaching, and then really hands off after that, because I put together a nice plan for them to follow. And then they were really professional, and it worked out well. And then they were paid properly. That's important, because
Yeah.
obviously a student wants to get paid. And we follow the process as best possible. And then I just say ethical hiring also means just choosing the best fit
For
in
sure.
terms of like creating a positive learning experience. So it took a while. Like I didn't rush finding the right person. Uh, so sometimes that happens, right? So you don't want to try to rush to fill a role too
You want to make
quickly.
sure you
I
have the
just want to
right
make.
person.
So I'd say that's where ethics definitely played a part too.
Absolutely. And in terms of the payroll and paying the student, what would you say the ethical issue that can possibly come up with payroll and student supervision?
That's a, I even say like a sensitive topic sometimes, but it might sound administrative when you talk payroll, but actually there's a lot of ethics behind this too. But I'd say ethical supervision really just means making sure the student is actually paid properly, making sure that the hours are tracked accurately, because there's a really detailed form that I had to always sign off on. So I had to make sure that was accurate, and just making sure they understand, how to actually fill out that form, and expectations
Yeah.
are actually clear in terms of how they're going to be paid and when they're going to get paid. So it also means not assigning work, obviously, before that paperwork's complete. So not asking students to kind of say do overtime or task outside the approved role. So I think it's really about fairness, taking accountability, but also respecting, I'd say, that's students' contribution.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. So to take a little turn from these questions, just change the angle a little bit. How would you say that the stakeholder ethics show up in the hub cycling project?
Yeah, so I'd say for this specific project, it was almost central to like what this project's about. So it's not just a project where, say, only one party mattered. I did mention this is a construction consulting department, but it's also part of hub cycling. So they had their own organizational goals, of course, but then the student has their, obviously their learning and career goals. CapU have we're a stakeholder. We have our own research, supervision responsibilities. My tax is actually funding this project. They also they're very strict. So a lot of compliance requirements we have to follow. And then, of course, since it's a not-for-profit and hub cycling is really big on the broader community. So I'm more talking about transportation
Yeah,
and building better design. So this mattered as well. So like uh, just from even like subcontractors to the bigger construction companies to even just anything you can think of that's sustainable transportation is all a stakeholder. So I'd say
right.
the strongest ethical approach in a project like this is really to think, say, beyond that one organization's immediate needs and really think about who's going to be actually affected, whose voice is actually included, and who's actually going to benefit from it. So in this project, we did do a big stakeholder analysis.
Yeah,
So there's a bit of project management here, and we also did the risk analysis as well. So it worked out really well because the person that we were working with at Hub was actually a director of project management as well. So he was in a director role.
well, very, very
Does that answer
important.
your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
So to
Okay.
zoom out a little bit, how would you say it's best to balance advocacy with objectivity in a project involving a mission-driven organization like this?
That's a good ethics question. I'd say because really mission-driven organizations could really sometimes have like strong beliefs, and important goals. But the research, again, I think I'm going to go back to this word again, still needs integrity. So the way I look at it is that advocacy and objectivity are not essentially opposites, if you're disciplined. So you can care, say, deeply about sustainability, which is a big topic still now, or even growing, I'd even say, in everywhere worldwide, but especially in Vancouver. In cycling, while still being honest, say about the data, there's obviously limitations here when it comes to that and gaps. So I'd say ethical research means really not overstating your findings and not ignoring, say, any contrary evidence and not forcing, say, conclusions that the data does not support. I think that's where the real big, again, this probably goes back to the REB, but I don't have to relate too much to that right now. But it's really about not jumping to conclusions too quickly and really doing proper ethical and research that shows a lot of integrity. I think that's the most important here.
Absolutely, and that's very insightful. So, uh, what would you say are the main leadership ethics were involved in this, kind of supervising a project like this?
Yeah, I'd say, in terms of leadership ethics, it shows up several ways. I was a supervisor, so definitely in my supervision, but also communication, not only with the students, but also with the client
Yeah,
and my tax, so other stakeholders. And I'd say even there were some modeling standards. So, like as a supervisor, part of my responsibility is really to create this process that's going to be fair, very organized. I'd say maybe I went a little overboard even with this project. I made it super organized, very easy for everyone to understand what's happening week by week,
right.
and then very supportive. I think that's the most important. This is a student researcher. It was her first time doing this. She did amazing work, but I just had to be there the whole time and really just support and help maintain accountability. And she made it quite easy for me, to be honest, because she, after a few weeks, was really motivated and did a
Yeah,
lot of the work without needing too much supervision, but obviously played a big part. I'd even say more early on. And it's
absolutely.
because, setting those expectations, I think, was key. But also, as a leader, you have to respect people's timelines and really help the student, really navigate, say, through any possible ethical issues that may come up,
Yeah,
but also to make sure that the academic and professional standards are followed.
sure.
Just maybe to extend on this student showed a lot of leadership because there was some challenges they had dealt with some leaders at the organization, just with a difference in communication style, and they
Yeah,
weren't used to it. How do I put it? More of a directive communication style. So people that were very upfront. I'll probably just keep this simple so everyone understands. So like a Donald Trump,
yeah.
probably easier. And I think it kind of threw this person off a bit, but they kind of came back to me as the supervisor for advice, how to uh, get how to actually, maybe I don't know if I'm using the right word here, how to behave or
Yeah.
how to be in these meetings, but obviously helped just set expectations there. And I was actually kind of wowed how this person handled everything. And in the end, she was like a star. You
Yeah.
know, I know it's not about this person, but they did hire her after the project because they were all impressed with her. And I really think it came down to the what we're talking about right now. So leadership. She shined in the end. She may
Yeah.
have been timid at the beginning, but she shined in the end. And I think it's also because I took a step back and let the student kind of navigate their way instead of, so I kind of showed her, brought her to a certain point, but then it's off to for the student or that
Absolutely.
researcher, right,
Yeah.
to really step up. So that one was a really good question because that one actually brought it back some memories. Actually, now thinking
For
about it.
sure. And understandably, because as a supervisor, you want to make sure that you're there to answer questions, but also not handhold, the role all the way. So it's
Mhm.
great when you give space and give opportunity for them to make errors, and but at the same time, you're not there to judge, but you're there to assist them. So just to loop this back into the beginning of our conversation, you did mention sustainability was a big part of this project. So how would you say this project connects ethics with sustainability?
That's a great question. I'd say very strongly, it's probably one of the most interesting parts of this whole project was that I actually linked marketing research with sustainable transportation, but also greener building practices. And that's essentially what this department did. And a lot of people didn't know this. So it's the BFB side, which is their consulting, uh, I'd say, arm or department, was
Yeah,
really about that. So ethically, it matters, though, what we're talking about because it expands, say, the definition of value. So it's not just selling a consulting service, it's really about improving access, livability, transportation choices, and also environmental outcomes. And that's essentially, aside from the research that was done, or the student researcher actually did help also with actionable, right on the spot. They actually were changing stuff in terms of their content on their website. So digital footprint was changed, especially with this content that we're talking about. And they really started showing that they're not just about selling, say, a consulting service. It's about sustainability. It's about actually helping all those things I just mentioned. And it was really, really amazing to see that. And this project probably wouldn't have been approved if it weren't for the methodology I put in to my tax and the other research. So
for
people with the
sure.
PhDs that had to approve this research, because I talked about sustainability and ethics a lot in there and how this would actually help, in terms of uh, changing in terms of buildings, how they're built, because we know there's a lot of high rises and a lot of buildings going up, especially in the Vancouver area or greater Vancouver area. And if you can make it more sustainable when it comes to transportation, but also around the building in terms of greener building practices. So they also do a lot of consulting with anything bike related. It's not
Yeah,
just bike rooms, it's even outside. So there's even the landscape architecture. You can imagine that this is obviously going to help the environment as well and
for sure.
sustainability.
It's definitely a cause that they also deeply care about, so they would definitely be more open to
Mhm.
working on a project like this. I do have one last question for you, and to tie everything together and wrap it up. What is one simple lesson students should take from this project about ethics specifically?
That's a really good question too. I'd say, a simple lesson is that ethics, it's not really, I'd say like a separate chapter after the work's done. Ethics is really built into how you hire, how you're interviewing, how you're collecting data, how you're also protecting people, which I brought up earlier, and then how you report those findings, and then how you actually make recommendations. So in other words, ethics is really, you could see a big part of the process. It's not just like a final judgment. And like I've been talking about REB, REB is really there to really protect the participants and strengthen the integrity of the research. So it's always nice to know that we have that. And then, as I just mentioned, again, maybe to kind of summarize it, ethics really in business research, not really just about the findings. It's really about how that work is actually going to be done.
For
So
sure.
I'd say that's the big one. And maybe just to kind of close this off here, since I think we're at our last question now, you said.
Yeah,
So yeah, so for me, the biggest takeaway really when it comes to ethical business practice, it's really not that abstract, right? So it's really to extend on what I just said. It's how you treat people. It's the same way I think about in the classroom, like how
yeah,
instructors treat students, but like how you collect and use information, how honest you are about the results, I think is a big one.
for
And
sure,
then whether your work actually creates value, but not just creating value, but is it responsible? So I think, this project always stood out to me because it was a really good example of all these things that we've talked about. So especially ethics,
for sure,
but it really connected the student learning, the partner impacts, but also like it actually had a huge community benefit to it. And the research was really well done, and they've actually applied a lot of the action items that the student actually put together from the research. So they actually used most of that person's research. So that
right.
was nice to see that. And then other companies, it looks like, are starting to adopt it as well in the Vancouver area, from what I know.
That's amazing. Yeah, so uh, definitely we can agree that ethics is the core of pretty much any project, anything you do in life, business. Just being ethical is extremely important, and I'd say maybe you will have a slower growth, but long term, it goes a long way, as it's tied to your reputation, everyone involved in the project. Thank you
Oh,
so
for
much
sure.
for your time, for walking us through this project, and I'm sure the students would be able to use this information and apply it into their real world scenarios.
My pleasure. This was great. Thanks. No, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.